Hey guys, I hope you all had a Merry Christmas. I know I did. And something else that came out during Christmas, which I totally binged all the way through, was The Witcher Season 2. So I decided to do a little drawing of The Witcher. It's just a big pen so far that I always sketch with. I'm sure you guys have seen some of those sketches before. I think going into the new year, I'm going to do a lot more of these like sketchbook sessions. I think I'm going to try and take it back a little bit. I've been doing a little bit too many edits in my videos. At least that's what I've been feeling like. I've been doing a lot of short videos and a lot of time-lapse videos. But I think I just want to do one where maybe just editing out the silence of my voice. That's the only reason you see the drawing skip around. But this one will be a long one, so settle in. I'm going over the Big Pen sketch with like a better artist pen. This is just a cheapie, but it's kind of like a micron pen. And then I'm probably going to color it with markers, as I always do. But I don't know how detailed I want this to be. I know I've already started here, but I think I just want to do like a little bit of touch up, a little bit of color, a little bit of value, but nothing too intense. This image is from The Witcher, the video game. I just found it online, trying to inspire myself from it and maybe add my own flair to it. I wish I could do live videos, but I can't get there yet, so this is going to be kind of like a live video. I guess you could pretend I'm live. So I think what I'm going to do is just go straight away into color. I think that'll give me some values to start off with. I'm going to go brown and gray and see how well those mix together. That's too dark. At least I think it's too dark. Yeah, way too dark. Markers that I'm using are a mix of Tombow and Copic and cheap Hobby Lobby ones. But they're all alcohol based, as I often use. As you notice, I use this perforated sketch pad here, and I like to make all my test marks right on the outside of that perforation, just in case I want to tear this page off and use it for something later. That way it's not all dirtied with marks. But also could use a scratch paper like that. A lot of my values are going to come from adding the gray markers on top of this. So I'm just going kind of like a base layer, I guess you would say. And just as an example, yeah, see, it'll eventually kind of look a little bit more black. But I know this character is dressed mostly in gray, so I'm just going to start off and give him a gray color. And one thing you may have noticed in my previous videos is whenever I start a sketch with this like big pen, it really blends when you add alcohol to it. And you know, maybe you don't want that, but maybe you do. It can be a cool artistic feature. I should actually be sketching with pencil. But, you know, when you sketch with a pen, it makes you more deliberate with your marks and a little bit more careful in the future. Well, after I started watching The Witcher, of course I had seen season 1 last year, but after I started watching season 2 that just came out a few days ago, I started playing my old game, The Witcher 3, which is still way too hard for me, but so much fun, and it just looks beautiful. Like, it's so realistic, I can't even comprehend how they made it. See what happens when I go over the old ink with this marker, is it kind of leaves this like bluish color, which isn't necessarily bad. Just depends on what you want. And all this stuff can be fixed with just layers and layers of markers. You may notice that I'm not coloring in the lines perfectly. What I want is to leave a little bit of white. Those are going to be my highlighted areas. Now the face I'm definitely a little concerned about because it's so small I think blending all my inks together may actually mess him up a little bit. So I think I'm going to go with an alcohol blender. This is just pure alcohol coming out of this sucker. Ah, too much. He wasn't perfect to start off with, but definitely touchy trying to fix this. I may just leave that alone altogether. Alright, let's start with something fun. The Witcher is a monster hunter, so he's going to have some monster heads here. At least that's what he has in my reference image. So this is supposed to be some kind of like strap or something. And you notice I drew the knot before I drew the strap there, because you want to think of those kinds of things ahead of time so you don't draw over lines. This is where you can really have fun with it, with the stuff that doesn't matter, like the creature heads. You notice when the alcohol dries, it leaves that real bluish tint. I definitely don't recommend using the Bic pen and the alcohol marker combo unless you are really hoping on that color, which it could actually be very good, but could definitely mess up your drawing too. I had saved this image earlier today, but I wasn't really looking at it when I drew this picture. So I got these monsters kind of all wrong, but that's okay. Alright, to get rid of some of that stuff, I'm going to go ahead and color this brown. I kind of drew the top as like this bag looking thing, but it's actually supposed to be straps. Alright, let's go in for a little better attempt at the hand. It's always really hard to try and draw the fist just directly at you like this. It seems easier, but it also looks less believable. Imagine the arm would come down like that, something like that. There's a little bit of shadowing in between the fingers. These like micron style pens that I use when I'm actually trying to do a finished illustration are just so much better for the bleed factor. Sorry, now it just comes down to values. The more shadows you can add, the more realistic it's going to look. And actually, some of these areas I may want to go even darker than that. Going with a real dark gray is basically just like going with black, and that's actually a little bit of a bravery test. Let's try this color for the flesh. And here's where you're kicking yourself. You're like, oh, I wish I didn't use a blue pen. What was I thinking? It's actually a black pen. Black pen turns blue ink. The nice thing about using gray though is when you want to do swords, actually it looks perfect. Swords and hands. Okay, he's got orange eyes. God, that looks terrible. Sometimes I forget how to talk and draw at the same time. So when you're coloring, it's good to do different gradients and variants. So it's just not stark color, but sometimes I feel like my choices are limited when I do these things when I don't plan to edit the video. Blending these alcohol markers actually works pretty well, but it takes a little bit. It's a little bit of a technique. I like to first go with a lighter color, then go with a darker color, then go again with a lighter color, and hope that all works out for the best. It's kind of hard on the marker too. Alright, I need some kind of highlight color. Now for the final touch is going to be actually re-inking this beast. So all the coloring I did so far is very, very loose. It's a very sketchy sort of feel to it. But I'm going to try to go in and re-ink this a little bit better. And maybe, just maybe, I can save all this blending that I've done here. Just trying to do very deliberate marks, not to ruin too much. Because if you make the whole page black with marks, you can't really go back. You know, he's got a scar there, and he's got a scar here. But that definitely looks a little better for the face. So that's not a bad way to fix it, actually, is go over it with a better pen. But the Witcher is kind of a rough kind of guy, so it's okay if he doesn't look too perfect. You guys should comment below if you've seen the show or played the game. Let me know, I'm interested. Especially if anyone's actually gotten far in the game. I've owned the game for years, but I'm kind of just starting to play it again. It's kind of cool what I'm getting when I go over this with more ink. It's the bottom layer of ink, the like smeared one, kind of gives these interesting values to it. And then the top layer of ink gives definition, which is nice. See, I'm not even really following the lines. Ridiculous, I didn't even pass that lesson in school. Stay in the lines. Whatever, don't need to stay in the lines. The more lines you add, the cooler your drawing will be. Just keep on drawing lines. None of them even have to make sense. See, that one definitely doesn't make sense. That's alright. Should be gray in there though. Always good to add, whenever you're drawing clothes like this gauntlet, it's good to add little squigglies to it. Gives it a more like realistic sort of fabric look. I don't know what's going on down here for his pants. Probably more leather straps of some kind. Speaking of leather, this should be leather colored. See how you can turn a sketch into an illustration? I mean, I'm not gonna do anything with this. It's not the best drawing in the world, but definitely used to look a lot different before I started messing around with it with the colors and adding more and more and more. Can't really add yellow over the top of all these other darker colors. Something you should keep in mind that I didn't. But the yellow kind of gives the impression that there's some kind of brighter light down here. Some kind of fire. Notice that my yellow and orange and the black, none of it lines up. But it's okay, because fire is a very, very natural sort of thing that doesn't have lines, doesn't need to line up. But I think that's enough of this. Again, this is just a sketch. It's not supposed to be the most perfect drawing in the world, but here we are. And this gives me a good starting point for an illustration that I want to do in the future. it's always good to do a few practice runs before you go for the real thing. And I think I'm going to keep on doing this like sketchbook session stuff. Right now that was 37 minutes worth of drawing, but I'll probably edit it down and let me know what you thought. See you guys later.